it seems that there has been a lot of civilians wondering why, defenses weren't built properly. There was some anger shown because apparently the Russian military was supposed to spend a lot of money building significant barricades and defenses in this area, and these appear to have failed.
The governor of the Russian region of Belgrade declared a state of emergency this morning as Ukraine continues its incursion. Vyacheslav Gladkov said houses had been destroyed and civilians had died. Moscow has called the incursion crazy. A spokesperson for Ukraine's foreign ministry said they're not interested in taking over Russian territory, but they want to protect the lives of Ukrainian people. Let's speak to Tom Mutch, who is covering events in Ukraine. This situation seems to be flaring up a bit. I mean, more territory is being taken.
Well, yes. So that said, we now have a little bit of a better idea of what is actually going on in Kursk region in Russia and in neighboring Belgorod Oblast. Over about the first 4 or 5 days of this operation, we were pretty much totally in the dark. We only had a few reports from the Russian mill bloggers and from civilian videos and things like that, showing that Ukrainian forces were entering. We now know a bit more. We now know the Russians are starting to get a little bit more control over the situation, having been taken completely off guard in those first couple of days. They've been moving in reinforcements, and apparently been moving reinforcements, some of them at least, from the hotly contested Kharkiv and Donbass fronts, although we don't know whether that will affect the pace of the battles there. At this stage, it's just too early to tell. It does appear that Ukrainian forces have at least made probing advances over into the neighboring Belgorod region. Now, that's a very important region for Russia because that is where it has been launching its attack on the Ukrainian second city of Kharkiv from.
At one level, the Ukrainian spokespeople are saying that they just wanted to make the point, really, of what's going on and give Russia, if you like, a taste of its own medicine. Do they seem set on trying to consolidate holding this territory?
Again, it's too early to say exactly what their plans are. For one thing, what they've made a significant number of achievements already, not just from temporarily taking territory. They've done two things. One, they've taken fairly large numbers of prisoners of war, probably more than 100, possibly several hundred, which are very valuable because they can be used to swap for the Ukrainian prisoners of war, many of which were taken 2 years ago now after the fall of Mariupol. They have also run roughshod right all over Russia's supposed red lines, which it's been saying could lead to, a full mass mobilization in Russia or possibly even a nuclear escalation. Now, we have seen that the Ukrainians have built tactical field hospitals within the Russian zone of operations that's on the Russian Federation territory. We've seen them begin to erect defenses in towns like Sudzha, which is the main population center that they control there at the moment. Now, what we would be interested to see if it goes a bit further than that, they start, actually digging in trenches and building extensive barricades and fortifications. Once we say that, we will know that the Ukrainians are more or less there to stay, or at least there to stay until they're able to potentially trade this territory for a part of Russian-occupied Ukraine, which many people think might be the case.
Are there any signs yet that this is achieving what some people thought the main purpose was, to take the pressure off in the other battle zones on the east of Ukraine?
So, with a week in, it doesn't unfortunately seem like the Russians have yet slowed their operational tempo in Donbass, where they were making some reasonably significant gains over recent weeks, or on the Kharkiv front, where their gains have been much more limited. And in fact, the Ukrainians have been slowly pushing them back. So, no, not at the moment. But again, we're only just over a week into this. And if the Ukrainians make some serious, substantial pushes, if they come close to threatening key Russian logistics points, or if they come close to threatening the Kursk nuclear power plant, then we could see the Russians forced to deploy much more significant resources, potentially taking the pressure off Ukrainian forces on other parts of the front.
Do the Russian people know about this, what's going on their territory? And if so, how are they reacting?
So there's not many people who have a very good insight into what Russians can and can't see, but they have effectively the same sort of messaging apps that we have in the West, things like Telegram being the main one, where a lot of this footage is shared. Now, a major source of information for the Russian people that's outside of the official Kremlin-controlled media is the Russian military bloggers. They're normally fairly stridently pro-war bloggers who've often attacked the Russian government for its failings in the war, and they have seemed to be reasonably reliable and a lot of their accounts match up with Ukrainian accounts. So if Russian people want to know the situation that's going on there, they can get a fairly good picture of it, the same as we can.
And is there any evidence of concern or anger with the Russian government for what's going on?
So within Kursk itself, it seems that there has been a lot of civilians wondering why, defenses weren't built properly. There was some anger shown because apparently the Russian military was supposed to spend a lot of money building significant barricades and defenses in this area, and these appear to have failed. However, the Russians have faced quite a few losses of territory within Ukraine. We've seen things like the Wagner mutiny, which nearly got to the gates of Moscow, and we didn't see any evidence of some sort of general uprising or huge swelling of anger among the Russian population. If the Russian government is pretty good at one thing, it is so far, it seems, keeping its population fairly docile.
Tom Mutch, thank you very much indeed for that.
Це, зокрема, райони, з яких російська армія завдавала ударів по нашій Сумщині. Станом на сьогодні і від 1 червня це вже майже 2100 обстрілів території Сумської області. Тому наші операції – це суто безпекове питання для України – звільнення прикордоння від російських військових. Я дуже розраховую також, що міністр оборони та всі наші українські дипломати будуть максимально активно працювати з партнерами щодо далекобійності для України. Нам потрібні відповідні дозволи від партнерів на застосування далекобійної зброї. Це те, що може значно, дуже наблизити справедливе завершення цієї війни, а також врятувати тисячі життів українців від російського терору. Цілком справедливо знищувати російських терористів там, де вони є, там, звідки вони завдають своїх ударів. Російські військові аеродроми, російську логістику. І ми бачимо, яку користь для наближення миру це може принести. Росію потрібно примушувати до миру, якщо вже Путін так хоче й далі воювати.